Well, welcome, variants from across the multiverse, to Geekverse Reactions. I am your host, as always, Caleb Keller, and joining alongside me is none other than DJ Foster at Rebel Scum Texan. How are you doing, good sir?
I'm just moving and grooving over here, man. I told you before we went live, it's not been a bad day. It's just been a long day.
Sure.
And I needed that music tonight to kind of get my not my spirits up, but to kind of wake me up a little bit, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, as soon as you hear that music, you're ready to go. It's
I
Geekverse time. I will say, I struggle, though, internally every time before we start recording with Geekverse Reactions, because I have to stop myself from saying Ugnaughts and Jawas. I literally just had to do it there. My wheels are cranking every single second until I start speaking, because I'm like, okay, don't say Ugnaughts, don't say Jawas. And I have to stop myself every single time. But with that said, if this is the first time you've ever heard our voices with Geekverse Reactions, just know that our first and primary thing is Mando Talk, which is a Star Wars focused show, podcast, news, review, anything and everything Star Wars. So check that out. I can't wait for Thursday when we go live to discuss the recent Star Wars stuff. And something is happening right now. Carl Weathers is just teasing with all of our Star Wars goodness going on right now. He's saying that he's fixing to start shooting season 3 for The Mandalorian. So I can't wait to talk about that on Thursday. But that's not why we're here tonight.
No, it is not.
Tonight, we're here for things away from Star Wars. We try to hold off. Obviously, Star Wars is going to creep in. It's doing it right now. But we hold off and we move away from that on Tuesday nights. Right now, tonight, we are talking about Marvel stuff. We've got DC. DC Fandom is coming this weekend. So if you're coming in here live, let us know what you hope to expect to see from that event, and we'll talk about it here on air. But other than that, really, I don't have anything else to say, except I'm excited to get into this. DJ, do you have anything else you want to say to the peeps, potentially, before we get to the news?
If you work for the TVA, let me know if I am an actual variant, because I would like to know what's happening in my other lives. I think that'd be a lot of fun to find out.
Man, speaking of the TVA, I wish we had Geekverse Reactions rolling whenever Loki was coming out, because I would have had so much fun talking about that show on a weekly basis.
Oh, it would have been a blast.
I'm really dying for some live action Marvel television content.
Yeah.
I know. Obviously Hawkeye's coming soon, but I'm afraid that that's not going to have the weekly speculation that Loki and WandaVision and others have had. Now, I say that, I hope I'm completely wrong, but maybe that's just the vibe that I'm getting.
I think you're going to end up being a little bit wrong on that. Yeah, because we haven't seen a whole lot from Hawkeye just yet as far as the TV world goes, but I think we're in for some really neat stuff. I kind of felt the same way about Winter Soldier and Falcon, but after about the second episode, I was like, okay, I'm in. You got me. I think that's how Hawkeye's going to go.
Yeah.
I guess that's my pre-game Hawkeye speculation. I don't know.
Fair enough.
All
right, well, listen, let's get to some of the news segments that we have to discuss on this week's edition of Geekverse Reactions. DJ, why don't you hit me with the small stuff? Hit me up with the things that didn't really make the cut as far as our main topics, but definitely some important things to talk about nonetheless. What do we have?
Sure, and this one, honestly, you're going to be the one to hit us with all of the good stuff here. So I'm just gonna throw it out there. We've gotten that House of the Dragon teaser that came out last week.
Let's go.
And if you're a listener at Geekverse or Mando, you know how big of a Game of Thrones fan Caleb Keller is. So let me, if you will, ask you these couple of questions. You being our resident Game of Thrones fanatic.
My watch begins.
There it is. House Stark flag is seen in the House of the Dragon teaser. What does that trigger in your mind?
Well, okay, maybe this is where maybe I need to read the books, but I want to say that it's heavily alluded in the show that there used to be a relationship between those two houses, the Targaryen house and the Stark house, like a healthy relationship. I might be wrong in that, but I do know that at some point they did have a relationship going. So seeing the House Stark flag, for me, that excites me because, I mean, in the teaser trailer, it reveals that it's only 200 years prior to the Game of Thrones events. In my opinion, that's not a long time as far as story goes. I mean, sure, we're not going to see any familiar characters or anything, but the connections, I think, are going to be easily made with that 200 number. So as soon as I heard about this, because admittedly, and you can go check out my reaction, I did not notice the House Stark flag initially, but admittedly, once I saw people talking about it, I went back and saw it. It makes sense. It makes sense for them to make those type of connections between the two shows.
Well, even connectivity across any kind of a franchise is always a good time and always makes for a greater story. Yeah. As Star Wars fans, we know all about that. Well, here's our second Game of Thrones related question. Not really question, but, kind of pointing it out. Valyrian steel swords seen in the House of Dragon teaser as well. Caleb, how do you feel about that being another connection?
Oh, it's massive. I mean, with House of the Dragon, obviously, we are alluded to believe that this is focused on the Targaryens, and these type of swords are believed to be forged with dragon fire, which totally makes sense because that's who's in power right now is the Targaryens. Yeah. They're literally their signet, or I forget what it might be called, signet in Game of Thrones. I'm still Mandalorian terms here. Their house sigil, whatever it's called, is a dragon, and they ride dragons. So the fact that they're bringing those swords in 100% makes sense, and it's also very exciting because they're the best swords out there. In the Game of Thrones franchise.
Oh, in the Game of Thrones franchise. I knew
me saying that would get your Lord of the Rings thing, going.
Well, hold on.
So let me retract. They're the best canonically in Game of Thrones.
I mean, if you have swords made by dragons, and then you have swords made by elves, who, let's face it, are basically eternal, cannot die angels. Sure. That's what they are. So I like the dichotomy there. It's a lot of fun.
That would be a good debate. Maybe we need to have a Geekverse Reactions debate one day about which sword is the best across the border. You would probably win because I know you're very passionate about swords and knives and weaponry.
Well,
but
it's a fun thing to discuss, I feel like. And I added this in our notes just before we went live tonight, and I figured, why not? I'm going to ask myself, DJ. Yes, DJ. What makes a cool sword? Like, what makes a sword a cool sword? And Caleb, hearing your perspective from the Game of Thrones end of things might be genuine here too. And of course, first of all, it will be genuine. Yeah. But secondly, I think it would behoove us to maybe even have this discussion if we ever do that, which type of sword is better debate. But for me, it's three things. It's the ability to behead your opponent.
Facts.
I mean, you got to be able to chop heads off. Can you wield it from horseback or dragon back? I don't think I've ever heard someone say that before, but it makes sense.
Sure, yeah.
Or its ability to even slay a dragon. That's in there somewhere. Looking at Gandalf. What's that?
I was gonna say, in the Game of Thrones realm of things, it takes something special to pierce through the dragon skin. So I don't know if.
I wonder where he got that from. The Hobbit.
Yeah.
And then finally, it's durability against suits of armor, whether they be steel or chainmail. I think it's important. So, Caleb, what makes a sword a cool sword?
For me, maybe because I'm not like deep into the sword or like the functionality of all of them.
That's fair.
For me, what makes the sword the coolest is who is welding that sword.
Oh, that's a fair point.
There's my addition to that conversation.
That's pretty, because like if you were to put Darth Maul's double-bladed lightsaber in the hands of
Star Wars
of Yoda, it just wouldn't make sense. Like it wouldn't. I get what you're saying. Well, hey, if you're out there and you're listening and you would like to discuss further sword topics, give us some sword topics not only to discuss, but tell us what you think makes a sword a cool sword. There we go. Sword talk. Now here's our here's the next small stuff. All right. We've discussed a little bit of James Bond here on the pod recently. James Bond. Shaken, not stud. But anyway, have you seen the new one, No Time to Die yet?
I have not seen it.
I've had no time to see No Time to Die. That's where I'm at.
I have heard things as far as the box office success of it.
Yeah.
Relatively international, it did well, but I don't think domestically here in the States it's performing as well as they had hoped. I know it's not Venom Let There Be Carnage numbers, but regardless, if you're a James Bond fan, go check out that film if you haven't seen it yet.
Eventually I'll get around to seeing it.
Yeah.
I love Daniel Craig as James Bond. I think where we have our Batman, who is our Batman, I think a lot of people would say this is my James Bond.
Yeah.
And Daniel Craig is definitely my James Bond.
Yeah.
But all that being said, there's always speculation about who will be the next James Bond. Probably even more speculation than who will be the next Batman, because I think it's really hard to say who will be the next Batman. But James Bond may be almost as difficult to say. And the one that's floated around a lot over the last few years has been, what if Idris Elba plays James Bond? And a lot of people have always, kind of thrown that out there. He's a British actor. He has the physique of a Bond type character, but he is 50 years old, and it's, once you get up there in those years, it's kind of harder to do Bond spectacular things.
Sure.
So what do you think about, would you like to see Idris Elba potentially become James Bond, even though he flat out says, hey, I'm not going to be James Bond?
Well, I think it would be interesting to see him portray the character. I think he would actually probably bring something to Bond that hasn't been brought to James Bond before. And that's what I always like to see. I think I've even talked about that with our Batman character discussions. Like each iteration, each portrayal brings something new. And that's really my hope for whoever brings James Bond to life next, is to just bring something new to the character. I think Daniel Craig has done that. Admittedly, I think what has helped Daniel Craig a lot is just modern technology as far as how you can shoot stuff. But regardless, I will say this, though, as far as James Bond, and I think maybe our very first Geekverse reactions, when we were talking about different franchises, this may have been brought up or somewhere along the way.
Yeah.
I do think they need to pause with Bond for a little bit and just try to recalibrate and figure out how to make, and I'm not somebody that thinks that the franchise is dying or anything like that, but they need to figure out a way to make it like fresh and feel new again. So we'll see. And I think once they get ready to do that, I do think that Idris Elba will be out of kind of age for that character.
Yeah, I agree with that. Let it breathe. And definitely we will, like when Daniel Craig took it on, he was a young guy. He couldn't have been 30 something. I mean, and he's played the character since what, 2004, 5?
Yeah, it's been a minute. It's been a minute.
And so that's a long time to be James Bond. I mean, Pierce Brosnan was Bond for the 90s, but we're spanning over multiple decades almost here. So but anyway, so now let's go into this next question. I think is very interesting.
Okay.
Who would we want to see play 007? Like, who do you think could play 007?
I'm horrible at this, if I'm being honest. I am terrible at fan casting. I would need to see like a list of potentials out there, and then I would give my vote. I can't really off the dome come up with one, though.
I came up with one that I've heard from different podcasts. I heard the stunt coordinator for Rise of Skywalker was also a stunt double in one of the Pierce Brosnan Bond films. Her name was Eunice, although I don't remember her last name. She said that she thinks John Boyega would make a great James Bond. And when you kind of step back and look at his career and kind of just objectively look at him as a physical actor, especially that lightsaber fight with Adam Driver in TFA.
Yeah,
I think he'd make a good James Bond. I'd have to agree with her on that.
Okay.
But then the only other name that I could think of off the top of my head that would bring in people, put butts in the seats, as I like to say, Timothy Chalamet. I could see him maybe being tried out as Bond, but still, I think we're like several pounds of muscle away.
We need a physique upgrade on that one. But I'm not here to shame or you whatever.
No,
as far as people's looks go. I just think, I don't know. When I see him, I don't think Bond. But hey, if he was to crush the audition, hey, I'm all for it.
Well, one other thing I do not see Timothy Chalamet as is Willy Wonka. And
dude, I actually liked it.
Oh, good Lord.
I actually liked it.
No,
Yeah.
I'm one of those people who I saw Gene Wilder first, and I feel like a lot of people our age didn't. I feel like a lot of people saw, well, people I grew up with had never seen it, and they were like, "Oh, Johnny Depp is Willy Wonka," and I'm like, "He is not Willy Wonka." So if he can do better than Gene Wilder, which is asking a lot.
Yeah, it is.
You know, that would be really cool. Well, those are our small news topics there off the top, even a little added bonus with some Willy Wonka information. You know, you tell us in the comments what your favorite Wonka candy is. All right. And because, you know, there's a lot of Wonka candy out there, you know, I mean, sweet tarts, nerds, those are Wonka candies.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, hey, there you go. And then you got gobstoppers. And does Wonka chocolate even exist?
Well, see, I thought that there for a minute Wonka was bought out by somebody. I don't even know if Wonka's a thing.
I never thought it was, but I know that at one point.
At one point it was for sure.
Oh, okay.
But at some point I think they were bought out, but I feel like there may be a comeback though. Who knows?
Well, if this does well, Nestle or somebody needs to jump on that. But anyway, you tell us what you think about anything we've talked about so far, or Willy Wonka, whatever. That's what we're here for. It's Geekverse. You can be geeky about whatever you want.
Oh, I'm dying, man. I didn't think we were going into Willy Wonka bar analysis tonight.
I mean, sometimes you just have to break down the Candyman sequence.
Sure.
Sure. Oh, man. Let's just do a whole episode just about Willy Wonka. That's it. Let's do it. Wonka. What do you even call Wonka fans? I don't even there's no telling. They don't have a name. They don't need a
Willy
name.
Wonkians? I don't know.
Wonk zonks.
Wonk zonks. Who knows? Who knows? But anyway, that's all the small news there that we wanted to discuss this week. But let's get into our main topics. And the first one up is all about, well, not all about, but it's got something to do with the Batman. As always, here we are Batsuit crazy, and it has been reported that both Ben Affleck and Michael Keaton are reprising their roles as the Caped Crusader in the upcoming The Flash movie. Now, I do think at this point, based off of these comments that we're fixing to hit, it's 1,000% happening. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. So speaking with Variety, Ben Affleck said, "It was a really nice way to revisit that as the prior experience had been difficult. This was really lovely, really fun." Now, in the notes, we have this question here that says, do we believe the difficult experience, quote unquote, was in relation to the mixed bag of drama surrounding Justice League? There definitely was some behind the scenes drama with Justice League and directors changing and things of that nature. But I think that when he's talking about, his difficult experience, I think he had some personal things that he was going through as far as like relationships and potentially
was it his divorce
or
with
something like
Jennifer
that,
Garner?
and maybe other things kind of came into play. So overall, though, I do think I'm not somebody that like reads latest drama as far as celebrities go, but I do think Affleck is now at a better state of mind to where he can now enjoy the character of Batman a little bit more, and I don't think all of the focus is on his portrayal of Batman, so he's able to relax with the role. And I also think that was part of it too. I think the expectation and the meaning of being Batman was also something that he had voiced he kind of struggled with a lot. So I think all of that, really, like the Justice League stuff, his personal things he was going through, and just the expectation of being Batman, I think all of that stuff, the first go around, was weighed really heavy on him. And I think maybe with this portrayal, it not being as crucial to the story, that's without seeing it yet, but it seems like it would be that way, that he would be able to enjoy this experience a little bit more. DJ, what do you have to say about Ben Affleck, Batfleck's return?
Yeah, I hadn't considered the personal issues in there. I tend to not, like you said, I don't focus on the celebrity drama a ton. Right. I just, unless it's like huge, like, and you have to like at least talk about, and I very rarely ever even jump into that. But I do remember that being something. Now that you say that, I remember being, oh man, I hate that for them and all that stuff. But as far as where we're at post Justice League, post Snyderverse stuff. I honestly think, yeah, he's probably referring to a lot of that, what you said, but I think he's definitely referring to just the whatever the heck was going on behind the scenes at Warner Brothers. I mean, I have since retracted my tweet, but I was just mad at Warner Brothers. And when the Snyder Cut came out, I was on Twitter like a lot of people, and I was like, there you go, Warner Brothers, that's what you should have done. I mean, I was just like, sure. Warner Brothers is going to see my tweet, but I was just like, hey, you guys, I mean, they really truly like messed it up. And when Zack Snyder came back and delivered the Snyderverse the way he did, it was just cinematic gold. I mean, it was beautiful. I mean, there's nothing about that movie that was bad.
Yeah.
And even the bits that were slow, I was like, this is fantastic. So I think Ben Affleck is probably looking forward to a time when he doesn't have to deal with the insanity that was whatever the heck was going on behind the scenes at Warner Brothers, you know. And honestly, I think that they messed it up so bad they had no choice but to release the Snyder Cut, I mean, once the fans jumped on and were like, we want this, and we want it because you messed up, Warner Brothers, maybe not in so many words, said, hey, you're right, we'll own up to that. Well, let's fix the mistake and move forward. So hopefully, as Ben Affleck returns, it'll all go a whole lot better for him.
Yeah, and I will say, before we move away to our other Batman portrayal in this film, having Ben Affleck come back, I'm very excited for it. I think he looks great as Batman, and I was super bummed whenever we learned that his own Batman film was canceled and wasn't going to happen. So I'm glad that we're getting another chance for Ben Affleck to be Batman, and I think it's going to be great. What do you think?
I mean, there's nothing blocking him anymore. I feel like, and if there is something blocking him, it's only going to be Michael Keaton, but like not in a bad way.
Yeah.
The only thing that could get in the way of his portrayal of Batman is Michael Keaton returning as Batman. And I think even that's even up in the air as it is, because it's two Batman in one movie. Like, it's going to be awesome. So I don't care. They could have resurrected Adam West from the dead and said, here you go. That'd have been fine. I mean, hey, it works out for me. Yeah. And it's not the first time we've seen that kind of happen, looking at Rogue One and other things.
Definitely. Well, let us know, those of you out there, what you think about Ben Affleck making a return as the Batman in the Flash film. But we have our other Batman speaking on this upcoming film. And DJ, why don't you tell us about what Michael Keaton is saying and what he's potentially up to?
Yeah. So he appeared on The Late Show. I think that's Stephen Colbert, if I remember correctly. And he's talking about this new Hulu series he's got coming out called Dope Sick, which I've actually heard nothing about this until this. So, I mean, good on The Late Show for getting Hulu's word out there on this kind of stuff. But he was asked about the Flash, and specifically asked whether or not he still fit into the Batman costume. We got to remember this. The last time this guy played Batman was like 1991, something like that. So it's been a long time, 30 years, So the fact that he's come back this far, he says to Stephen Colbert about whether or not it fit. He goes, svelte as ever, same dimensions, same fitting. And the truth is, Michael Keaton is a small dude.
Mm-hmm.
So like, it wasn't that hard to believe that he could still fit into it. I mean, I remember, if you go on to like the Dark Knight trilogy bonus features, the test screenings they did for actors as Batman, they pulled out a Val Kilmer suit. And somehow all of them were able to fit into Val Kilmer's Batman suit. And, and of course, Christian Bale, we know the rest is history. But to hear that he's back in the suit is already enough. But to hear that it's the same suit and it still fits. I mean, Caleb, what do you have to say about it?
Well, I mean, I'm like you. Whenever I read that, I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. But then I thought about it for a minute, and I was like, well, he is kind of a small dude. He's been staying busy in the acting realm of things, so he's still in great shape. So I wasn't surprised, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, we've mentioned it previously on Geekverse, but our excitement for the Flash has everything to do with Batman showing up.
Yes,
which is it creates a bit of a problem when you think about it. So is Michael Keaton helping or hurting the Flash? I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it's the movie or the character. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I mean, them being both Keaton and Affleck being in the film is definitely helping the film as far as wanting people to get out there. But maybe for those that are just like, kind of like me with Spider-Man and wanting to have Venom and Spider-Man wait to meet until after No Way Home. Like, if you're a diehard Flash person, I could see some frustration as far as, well, I'm finally getting a Flash film, but they're hyping it up for Batman to be in this film, and they're not really hyping up the Flash, even though it's called the Flash.
Well, I mean, let's face it. He already has his own TV show, whether or not it is the same actor or the same universe. It's still, we've gotten like 19 seasons of Run Faster, Barry. So like, and I used to be a diehard Flash fan on the TV show, so I'm over here roasting it now. I don't know what's happened to my perspective, but I will say this. I actually think that him showing up is helping the movie a lot. And I think, and it's also helping the story. And I think it's helping the story in the same way that Tony Stark helped get Spider-Man introduced in the MCU. And I think having that bridge was very helpful. And I think Batman, being a part of the Flash is going to help better establish the DC EU. I think it's going to really, help bring those people together and really make that more cohesive.
Yeah.
Because we are going to be getting into some multiverse stuff and having the connectivity across, the universes there, I think is a good call. And I think having somebody like Ben Affleck return, and of course Michael Keaton as well, is going to be really, really good. That's my perspective on it, whether or not it helps or hurts. I think it helps more than hurts.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it hypes up the film more than probably I would be hyped up for it to begin with. I mean, I have been wanting to see a Flash film for a while, but right now in the current state with, like we've kind of mentioned, with how Warner Brothers kind of botched all of this DCEU launch, my hype train for the Flash went way down, but now that they're kind of going about it this way, it's getting there. So we'll see as they keep rolling content out for the Flash. We'll see as far as maybe how hyped I get. And speaking of that, as far as rolling out content, DC Fandom is coming up this weekend. So real quickly, what I wanted to do before we moved away from DC kind of news, which has been focused on Flash and Batman, what I wanted to talk about was maybe just some of our own expectations for DC Fandom coming up this weekend. And I'll go ahead and kickstart at number one. I'm definitely expecting to see the Batman trailer, and they've confirmed that. So that's my highlight. That's what I can't wait to see the most, seeing that trailer and new content for that film, which I hope is going to be incredible. But secondly, I don't know why this is number 2 on the list for me, but Black Adam, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, that film coming out. Yeah. I'm very excited to see some content on that, and I think we're definitely going to be getting some. And then I guess third on the list is if they want to release any Flash content, which I'm assuming they're going to. I think it was maybe 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago we talked about the producer revealing that there wasn't going to be a trailer.
Yeah.
I'm kind of doubtful of that. I feel like we're going to get some form of teaser for it, because we got new footage in the DC Fandom trailer. Like, we saw Ezra Miller as the Flash in that, and it was a new shot. So I think we're going to get some form of look at the Flash movie. But those are my top 3 things that I'm looking forward to the most. DJ, what about you?
Well, I mean, Batman's my number 1 on the list. And, having looked over to see what you've got for our YouTube folks, I wish I had seen this particular photo you used. I don't even know. You can't call this a photo. This is just an image, but it's got all of the different stuff that's coming up. Totally forgot about Black Adam. So that just kind of went on my list as you said it. And I just forgot about it. I've voiced it before. I'm not a fan of Shazam. I didn't like Shazam.
I love Shazam.
I mean, in fact, I didn't like it so much that 45 minutes in, I was like, how much longer do we have in this movie?
Jeez.
And I'm usually not that harsh on superhero movies. I'm like, let's give it a chance. So I pause it, fast forward. I'm like, I still have like another 45 to an hour left in this thing. And I was like, screw this. And I just fast forwarded and I was like, oh, that's how it ends. Okay. And, so I Black Adam needs to perform well for me to really enjoy it, I think. So I think I'll say I'm looking forward to that. You said that you kind of already took Batman and the Flash, but the final thing is I would like to see a full-blown Peacemaker trailer. I don't know if they're going to give us a full-blown Peacemaker trailer. I haven't seen anything about it. I do know that James Gunn is over on his Twitter really hyping it up. In fact, there's a 1-800 number you can call about like, and I think I haven't actually done it, but I think John Cena picks up the phone or something and he's like, I will kill anything. Like, really pulling on the strings that we established in the Suicide Squad, which I was surprised that they decided, let's give John Cena his own thing, So for me, I want to see that just because I think it's going to be weird. And I've often said on both Mando Talk and Geekverse, I love it when the things that we love about all these universes are weird. I just like weird stuff. And I think that James Gunn is the perfect person to give us weird DC content. So if he gives us that weird DC content through Peacemaker, whether he's that actual guy heading up the show or whatever, I think it'll be really a lot of fun. So that's kind of what I'm looking forward to for DC Fandom. I bet they'll announce a lot of comics, like comic book stuff, and maybe a new animated series or two.
New television shows or stuff like that. Stuff that probably won't tick the meter as much for me personally, but stuff that big DC fans will get really excited for.
Sure. And that was me 6 or 7 years ago. I was hardcore into Arrow, Flash, and Gotham and was following all of that. And then Marvel had to go and drop Daredevil and ruin it all because Daredevil was freaking awesome. But and Jessica Jones. By the way, if you're out there sleeping on Jessica Jones, stop. That's a great show. But all that to say, I think DC Fandom's going to have a lot of really cool surprises.
Yeah. Let me add to the list something that we haven't mentioned yet. Aquaman 2. The Lost Kingdom. I think it's called it's either The Lost Kingdom or The Last Kingdom. I can't remember. But I'm pretty sure it's alluding to Atlantis.
Yeah.
And I would have to guess.
Man.
I'm excited
I totally forgot about that.
Because I loved the first Aquaman. Admittedly, it wasn't the best movie ever, but it was the visuals that were pretty cool. I love Jason Momoa, Game of Thrones. You got to rep your boys. So I can't wait to see that. I do think we'll get something for that film. But anyway, again, we can't wait to see the event. I can't wait to discuss whatever comes from that event. And let us know, if you're out there watching this on the playback or you're live or you're on the podcast, Discord, you can click that link and come and share your thoughts on DC Fandom, maybe before it happens and definitely during and after, and tell us what you think of all of the trailers or teasers or images or all the things that are to come from that event. All right, that is our DC coverage. But DJ, why don't you go ahead and kick us off with our Marvel news?
Well, we do have some more, and I was very proud of this pun. Marvelous Marvel news. I think every now and then we need to be very proud of very strange and funny things that we can personally speaking.
Sure.
If you're proud of a weird thing you came up with, just flaunt it. So anyway,
there you go.
More marvelous Marvel news. And this one hit today. We had to add this to the show notes. And I was surprised to see it just a couple hours ago. I was like, what the heck? Isn't that the kid from We're the Millers and the third Narnia movie and the Maze Runner movies? I was like, what? Anyway, all that to say, Will Poulter, that dorky looking dude from We're the Millers who got bit by a spider and almost died in that one scene, is set to become Adam Warlock in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Yeah.
This seems so off the wall. I got to be honest with you.
Yeah. I will say, as far as the casting goes, I think it's perfect. I think him as this character fits perfectly with James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy vibe that he has set up. I don't think bringing in somebody that's stone cold, perfectly looks like the character matches with what James Gunn would want to do with Guardians of the Galaxy. So I think this is 100% matching what James Gunn has laid out for Guardians of the Galaxy. And I did in our notes, it's a question mark though. I don't know if he is, because in the comics, Warlock has been a hero before, but I'm pretty sure that in the post-credit scene for Guardians of the Galaxy 2, it was alluded to that Adam Warlock was the guy that could, wipe out the Guardians.
Yeah.
So I'm going to assume that this guy is going to be our villain, but we'll see.
Well, he'll definitely be that. I think this is another one of those cases where he's not billed as a villain necessarily toward the end of the movie. I think by the end of the movie, we're going to be like, oh, we were fighting the wrong people the whole time. Kind of like Avengers Age of Ultron-esque in a way. But for me, honestly, I still think it's a weird choice nonetheless.
Okay.
But you said James Gunn, and I was like, I always have to remember that James Gunn is the X factor in anything he does, because it's so, we saw the Suicide Squad, and of course, Guardians of the Galaxy, like 2 very off the wall, or 3, I should say, very off the wall stories. They're just nuts. So, but I will say this about Will Poulter, and I'll use a parallel. When Chris Pratt was cast as Star-Lord, Peter Quill, I remember seeing somebody was telling me, "Oh, Guardians of the Galaxy, you're gonna love it. It's great." I was like, I had no idea what they were. I was like, "Is that a raccoon and a talking tree?" I mean, I was like, "What is this?" And I like Lord of the Rings, but like, I want my talking trees to be big. And I was like, "What is this group? What?" And so I was pleasantly surprised, to say the least. And it was one of the last Marvel movies I got to see before I left the movie theater from working there. But I will say, Chris Pratt totally transformed himself from goofy Andy to full on Guardian. I mean, like, I wrote it down this way. He went from goofy to Guardian. And he did such a good job of taking on Peter Quill that now I can't. It's like, who else can do that?
You can't.
Yeah, I can't like even when I go back and rewatch Parks and Rec, I'm like, there's Andy. That's love me some Andy. But then I go watch Guardians or anything else, and I'm like, Star-Lord. Like, they're not the same person.
Yeah.
And so he does a really good job, I'll admit. So all that to say, if Will Poulter can do what he does, like similar to what Chris Pratt did with Peter Quill, and kind of take on this character of Adam Warlock and really kind of rearrange my expectations, then fine. I think that's great. I think it'll be a good time.
Yeah. No, and I'm kind of the same way. I mean, admittedly, it's weird whenever you see that guy with, from We Are the Millers and everything else that I've seen him in, and transition that to a comic book character that could potentially be playing a villain. Like, it's weird, but then you think about it, and you think about all the villains that have been in Guardians of the Galaxy are kind of goofy on a certain level.
Well, I think that's James Gunn's directing. Exactly. I mean, I think he really knows how to do that. And who knows? This Adam Warlock may end up being the next Loki. I mean,
hey, I'm all for that.
I mean, if he's the next like comedic, like not even comedic. I don't even know. I can't even like define Loki anymore. Because he's the only villain I think I've ever rooted for. It's fun. Like it's different. So if that's what Poulter does with Adam Warlock, then
sign us up.
More power to him. Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, you tell us what you think of this casting. I think it has online split the audience. Like, some people love it. I've also seen some people just like absolutely despise this casting. So you let us know where you fall in that discussion. All right. Next up on our marvelous Marvel news is my most anticipated Marvel film to release for the remainder of the year, and that's, of course, because all of the Game of Thrones connections, and that is Eternals. So Eternals director Chloe Zhao has confirmed both a mid and post-credit scene in Eternals. That's the news drop. That's the mic drop. But I don't really think it's that big of a deal. I think we would, at this point, expect that to be the case. Yeah. But she did specifically say they are equally important in weight and both have big surprises for audiences. So I'll just pause there. I'll pass this to you, DJ. Any thoughts start rolling in your brain whenever you hear this, as she specifically says big surprises for audiences?
Well, I think it's really difficult to make predictions about what we'll see in a mid or post credit scene because we haven't seen the movie yet. And I think that the movie story tells us a lot about those post credit scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course the expectations as to what is coming. And in this case, I think the timeline is Spider-Man, then Thor, Love and Thunder, and then Doctor Strange. I may have gotten the last two mixed up. I can't remember.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure which one's coming first with those.
So for me, I think, these post-credit scenes are going to have a lot to do with really, I think, Agatha Harkness in one respect, and then also directly affecting Doctor Strange 2, possibly Thor. I think Doctor Strange will affect Thor more than Eternals will, but I don't think it's going to affect No Way Home. I think what they want to do with No Way Home, there's so much happening in that movie that to add anything extra aside from like maybe a post-credit scene, I don't think that there's anything to really add to that. So these I think are going to carry, like, I really appreciate that Chloe Zhao said that it's going to carry weight, because that's what I want to know about these post-credit scenes. It's what made Venom's post-credit scenes so good.
Mm-hmm.
I won't say it just in case.
Sure.
But also, go back to what was it? Spider-Man, the second one, the Far From Home, or maybe it was Homecoming, where Captain America comes out at the end and he's like, some things are just not worth waiting for. And I was like, thanks a lot, Marvel. Like that one. I've never watched a post-credit scene and been mad until that one. And I was like, so now there's always this other factor of, is the post-credit scene crap or is it awesome? And to know beforehand it's going to be something worth waiting for. Yeah. And that makes it a lot better for me.
Yeah. Here's what I'm thinking for it.
Okay.
I think I don't know which order it's going to come in, but here's one of the either mid or post. One of them is going to tease up Kit Harington. He is in Eternals. He is playing, we know who he's eventually going to be playing. But right now in this film, I believe he is just a basic human that might have a power or two that he is slowly realizing that he has. But Kit Harington is playing Black Knight in Eternals, but he hasn't been in any promotional material. They don't put him in the posters. He has been in the trailers, but like I said, he's just been in normal gear. He hasn't been like dressed up as a hero or anything. I think one of either the mid or the post-credit scene is going to be setting up him as Black Knight a little bit more than what just the movie does. So I think they're going to, with one of the credit scenes, it's going to shoot off, okay, here's a spin-off of this Eternal story that we just told. But I also think maybe the other credit scene, like she's talking about in this quote, is going to then connect to one of these other bigger films that we have already gotten confirmation about. And I agree with you. I don't think it'll be No Way Home. I think it'll more than likely either be Strange or Love and Thunder. But I'm feeling pretty confident in that statement of it being focused on establishing that Kit Harington will be back as Black Knight. Pretty confident in that.
So who's Black Knight? I don't know if I've ever heard that outside of Monty Python. Like, I've never heard who that is, what that character is.
Well, to be completely honest, I'm not the comic book reader. I just know that that's who he's been cast as, is Black Knight. And, after we go off air, I can show you the image for it and everything.
Yeah.
But it has been confirmed that that's his character. And I know that was a big deal with a lot of people whenever this announcement was made. But like I've said, we've seen it with teaser trailers and with character posters they've even released. Kit Harington was nowhere to be seen in those individual character posters that they released a couple days ago. So I don't think his role is going to be important in Eternals. I say that. It's going to be vital. He's obviously going to have something important to do, some form of relevance. But I think that his powers will be teased to where then with a mid or post-credit scene, it'll be like, okay, he's officially Black Knight if you didn't catch the drift, and he's getting his own movie, show, whatever you want.
So does that connect to Moon Knight with Oscar Isaac?
See, that's where it goes outside of my realm of knowing.
Because now you follow my logic real quick. Got Black Knight, I'm assuming Knight, and then Moon Knight is definitely Knight, which he's decked out in white with a hood, last I checked, and it makes sense to have the White Knight versus the Black Knight. I mean, that's just old school Renaissance-y type stuff there. So now that I'm backtracking now, what if this post-credit scene has something to do with Moon Knight? I mean, do you think Marvel would go that far and be that gutsy out of the gate with Eternals to say, boom, we're already setting up Oscar Isaac as Moon Knight? Like, you know, do you think that would do that? Or
I mean, I would certainly like to see that kind of connection.
Yeah.
Actually, I really like that a lot, if I'm being completely honest.
I don't know anything about the characters. So, you know, hearing you say not Dark Knight, that's Batman, Black Knight, you know, being this guy. And I didn't even realize, like, as soon as you said Kit Harington's not in anything, I'm like, oh yeah, he's not. Like, and I keep getting him mixed up with the other guy from Game of Thrones, because I'm not a Game of Thrones guy.
Richard Madden.
Yeah, I keep seeing him
outside of Angelina Jolie, the secondary character.
He's the guy that does the Superman eyes, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So like watching that, I'm thinking that's not him, and then I'm like, well, is it? Like, no, it's not. So every time I see something with that, I think, oh, that's that guy. That's Kit Harington. But I know it's not, because I look at him and I'm like, oh, that's definitely not him. So I'm just now curious. Like, I wonder if that actually does that. If somebody has weird random Moon Knight knowledge, now would be the time to drop that in the chat. Absolutely. Because that would be really, really good. I should have put my hood on for my Moon Knight stuff.
There you go. I was doing, as you were kind of talking there, a Google search as far as just Black Knight goes. And of course, you know, we're not scholarly here, so I clicked on Wikipedia for Black Knight.
There you go. There you go.
And honestly, the biggest thing that pops out as I was just looking at the Wikipedia page was that his first comic book appearance was an Avengers comic. And then secondly, the next biggest thing that popped out to me was that he worked with Doctor Strange to fight extra-dimensional threats. So
Black Knight did?
Yes.
Well, then it definitely has to go into Doctor Strange. That means, okay, cool. I'm gonna call it Benedict Cumberbatch is in one of these post-credit scenes. And it would not be the first time he's been in a post-credit scene.
Right.
Because we've seen him do what was this post-credit appearance? I can't even remember now. It was in one of those Thor movies. Like, no, it wasn't in Thor. It was setting up Thor.
It was no. I think it was. Oh, I know what you're talking about, because it's when Thor comes to his place.
Yeah, it set up Ragnarok. So whatever film it was in before Ragnarok, that's what we saw Doctor Strange.
Was it at the end of Doctor Strange? That wasn't Thor showed up.
I think it was. Yeah, that's what it was. So, you know, I'm calling it this.
Okay.
The post-credit scene is, I'm going to just tell you what it is verbatim. Okay. Kit Harington is going to somehow realize he has powers towards the end of the movie. Okay. In like the third or fourth act. Okay. He won't use any powers. We'll go to the post-credit scene or mid-credit scene. He'll have powers. And then Doctor Strange is going to walk in a la Tony Stark at the end of The Incredible Hulk into the bar to talk to General Ross. That's what it's going to be. It's literally going to be that. I'm calling it. I can see
that. And then let me add to that. So he, outside of being Black Knight, his name is Dane Whitman. Throughout Eternals, that's going to be his name. It's just going to be Dane, Mr. Whitman, whatever. Then we get to that mid-credit scene or post-credit scene, whatever. Maybe Strange walks in and says, "You're our Black Knight. Let's go." And that's when we officially get that name drop to those people out there that don't know that that's a character. Like me and the only reason why I know that it's Black Knight is just because as soon as I saw Kit Harington was cast in Eternals, they said he would be playing a Black Knight. That's the only reason why I know who that character is.
And that's totally fair on your end. Like I'm honestly, I've just been treating Eternals like I don't know what it is, because I don't.
I don't either.
I'm just like I know who Superman is. At this point, I know who Iron Man is. I'm trying to go into this with zero expectations.
Yeah, I am too.
But hearing that we've got these post-credit scenes and thinking what they could do, now that we know what we know, thank you, Wikipedia. I think that's going to help my excitement for this movie, because I'll just be honest, up to this point, it's been overshadowed by Hawkeye, by Venom, and by Spider-Man. And now that I'm hearing what we've got going on as far as this post-credit scene type stuff and what could happen, I really like where this is headed. I also had, I previously said something about Agatha. I'll just save that for the next one, because we are going to talk Agatha here.
I think we're ready for it. I mean, than I'll just say this. If you have predictions for the mid or post-credit scene for Eternals, please don't hesitate to let us know, because I'm dying to talk about Eternals. I can't wait for it to come out, and we'll definitely be doing a spoiler review, spoiler discussion about Eternals, and I'm sure we'll be making some Game of Thrones connections with that along the way. But DJ, why don't you go ahead and take us to that next news piece?
By we will be making Game of Thrones connections, you mean you.
Yeah, fair enough.
Well, our next and pretty much our final news piece is all about Agatha Harkness. And if you're like me, you were if you're listening or watching, you're probably of that mindset of, why the heck, where did this come from? Maybe, I don't know, but Agatha Harkness is set to appear in multiple movies and shows across the MCU, according to Catherine Hahn's deal with Marvel Studios. Good on Catherine Hahn for not doing a one and done situation.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, Marvel has gotten so big that they make even the most B-list of B-list look like the A-list. And I mean that both in actor and in character. Because I'm going to be honest with you, didn't know who Agatha Harkness was before WandaVision. And I'm still of the opinion that I didn't get enough Agatha to warrant multiple appearances in the future.
Okay.
So, and I'm not saying that as like, I'm a dude and I don't like women. I'm not saying that. I'm saying she was kind of there and it was weird. And then at the end, in like the fourth quarter, they just say, here we go. And I'm like, well, that's not enough for me to think, give me a whole everything. You know, so I'm just kind of trying to build my way into this at this point, to see more of her as she pops up. So, I mean, Caleb, with that being said, she's coming. We're going to see her. She's going to show up. Where do you want to see Agatha pop up?
I mean, it would make sense, I guess, for her to somehow be incorporated maybe with an end credit scene in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, because she is now heavily connected to everything going on with Wanda / Scarlet Witch. I will say, though, I think my initial reaction to this news, and I'm like you, don't get me wrong, I liked the character of Agatha. It was great. I was surprised by this, honestly. I didn't know if we had gotten enough of Agatha to warrant we need multiple appearances from this character. But I'm all for it. Don't get me wrong. I can't wait to see it. I think that the ending of WandaVision left that. I mean, she was. Well, spoilers for WandaVision if you haven't seen it. I am going to go ahead and say it because it's been out for a while. She was left clueless there toward the end. So it's possible for her to somehow come out of that little spell that's going on and then seek revenge or something, because I do think there is want from the fan base to see maybe a showdown between these two again with how things were left off. So maybe that's where this is going to be coming into play. For me, if it's like a quick turnaround, it's got to be Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. But if it's something that they are well away from, I don't know where else we could possibly see it in the immediate future.
Sure. And I kind of worded these two questions in our show notes just a little different to kind of tweak it just a hair. And hey, there it is, Hillary Foster in the chat, and I knew she'd chime in eventually because she loves herself some Agatha Harkness.
There you go.
She says, I need to see an Agatha versus Strange Wanda showdown. She's in the same camp as you, Caleb. And honestly, I'm there too. I think that we do need to see more Agatha versus Wanda. I've just never gotten around to saying, okay, where's that work?
Sure.
And so, like I said, we have these two questions in our show notes. They're worded just a hair different. Where do we want to see Agatha pop up, and where do we expect to see Agatha pop up? And you kind of did the expectation one just now, post-credit scene.
Right.
And I think it would work in Doctor Strange best. Honestly, anywhere in Doctor Strange. I think it's the perfect place for that. It doesn't have to be a credit scene. shoot, a credit scene at the end of Spider-Man, No Way Home would be great. I think
sure.
that would make sense because Doctor Strange is right there. Get in the movie, set up. There's a showdown. I mean, I think that would be great. But where do I want to see Agatha pop up? I think end credit scene for Eternals is where I want to see that because it's such fresh news.
Mm-hmm.
Put it out there as fast as you can.
Did Chloe Zhao's quote come after this news or before?
That is a really good question. I did not dig that deep.
Because if the Agatha Harkness news came out before, the quote could be a way to, like, okay, ignore that for the moment and just look at this. And they're eventually going to be the same thing, but we don't want you to think they're the same thing.
Yeah. So what I'm looking up right now is I'm going to the Deadline article. All right. So Deadline article has this being released at 8:35 a.m. on October 7th. Okay. That's Catherine Hahn.
Okay.
But if we hop back over to Fandango's website, the Chloe Zhao thing is October 11th.
Okay. So pretty fresh news.
I think you're onto something there. I mean, that's
it's
yesterday.
It's possible.
Yeah. I think it would make a lot of sense. Hey, let's say, okay, here comes this. And then it's literally Talladega Nights. Here's a little shake and here's a little bake. That's what they're doing.
Oh, I love that.
they just did shake and bake on us is what they did. I mean, that's what they're doing. And so there can't be 4 people on the planet who've made that connection. But at the same time, let's just kind of put that out there and just think about that for a second.
Yeah.
And Marvel knows how to, I like to put it this way, weave together the quilt that is the MCU.
Yes.
I'm from the South. We make quilts down here. So it's right there,
there
right on top of the dump. So when you stitch together the quilt that is the MCU, it makes perfect sense. I think that's where we would kind of see Agatha, show up and I actually made that, before I even really thought it all out. I was like, hey, you know what? It makes sense for her to go here. I hadn't thought anything out until just now. So I think that's where where I want to see Agatha. I think now with the 2 articles coming out within days of one another and kind of direct your attention, I think that makes sense. So what about you? Anything else you want to add to that?
No, other than I still expect it later with Doctor Strange. But now that you have been saying all that, I wouldn't mind seeing it pop up.
I am a very
Eternals.
convincing person.
Yeah,
I have the ability. I'm just kidding. Well, you tell us what you guys think about. Oh my gosh, our chat. My wife is back in the chat, and she says, kind of like her actions with a little asterisk. She says, searches Etsy for a Marvel quilt. You know what? Marvel quilts on Etsy ought to be a thing if it's not already.
I would say it probably is.
It's got to be. Yeah. Surely. Yeah. I need to see this link. If Hillary finds the link to an Etsy store that makes Marvel quilts, I will drop it in Discord.
Okay.
I will do,
there you go.
Because that'll be. Oh, there's a quick little plug. Join our Discord.
Hey.
Join our Discord at Mando Talk. We talk all things Geekverse. We talk spoilers. We have a specific channel for that. And we also talk Star Wars a lot because let's face it, Star Wars is the best. It will always be.
Absolutely.
And then it's Lord of the Rings, and then Game of Thrones is like number
retract.
I love it. I love picking on it. Anyway, that's what we have to say about Agatha Harkness. You guys tell us what you think in the comments, or tweet at Rebels Come Texan or Mando Talk to let us know what you think about anything we talked about. But I want to hear Agatha. I really want to know what you want. What's our next song? What's Agatha All Along Part 2 sound like?
Oh, man.
Dude, I sang that song around the house for weeks.
So catchy. It's extremely catchy.
All along. It was perfect. Perfect.
It was great. It was great.
And we have it queued up now. I'm just kidding.
No, we don't. We don't. All right. Well, listen, like you said, let us know what you think of that Agatha news. We have one final thing to discuss, but before we go into it, this is our last thing. So we always try to do this with our last things. Here's our
sad
spoil. Yeah, it is kind of sad that this episode's coming to an end. I mean, we'll have to wait.
It's okay though. We'll be back Thursday.
That's right, for Star Wars
discussion.
Okay, last thing. If you have not seen Marvel's What If yet. We are fixing to discuss spoilers for the finale. So if you haven't seen it, binge watch it real quick and then come back and listen to our spoiler analysis that we did really at the end of all of our Geekverse reaction episodes recently, except for maybe the week or two that I just couldn't find the motivation to watch the said episode. But we have covered all of them at some point. So anyway, spoilers for Marvel's What If. Let's get our crazy gas station inflatable arms waving. Spoilers for Marvel's What If finale are coming in. So again, fixing to show an image, especially if you're on YouTube. I'm going to show an image that was pulled straight from the finale episode. So final warning. And we appreciate you listening. If you have not, if you don't want to watch or listen to the spoiler talk.
For our audio listeners, I just made the dumbest face ever. It's on the screen. Anyway,
let's do it. Marvel's What If spoilers for the finale. Here we go. First thing, I just now, today, before the show, watched it.
Just now?
It's been out for what, a week and a half, 2 weeks at this point? I just watched it. If that does not sum up my passion for What If, I don't know what else does, man. I don't know what else sums up my experience with viewing What If on a weekly basis, other than watching it literally an hour before we went live tonight. So that's the first thing that I wanted to say. DJ, do you have a response to that?
Yeah, first of all, that explains why you didn't respond to me on Discord. I private message Caleb like daily, and we talk back and forth all the time on Discord, but like that explains where I was like trying to like, hey man, it's been a long day, just a heads up. No response. Hey, I'm ready to go. Hit it. Like that. I'm like, all right. Anyway, that's my initial response to finding that information out.
I was busy, man. I had to get prepped.
It's okay. It's so funny. No, I will say, as far as What If went, it's a solid show. I mean, clearly it's not for everybody. And I think when it comes down, like I remember talking to my dad about this, and I was like, hey, are you going to watch What If? And he was like, well, yeah, it's live action, right? And I was like, no, it's not live action. It's an animated series. And he kind of goes, no. Like he was upset mostly because he really, really enjoyed Agent Carter's TV series. And so when he found out Captain Carter was going to happen, he was like, let's go. Like he was excited. So to find out that it was animated for him, and I imagine a lot of people, it kind of just took a turn down, boring street for a lot of people. And, but for me, I was never really bored. I don't think I had one episode where I was just like, it wasn't like Shazam for me, I mean, I must be like in the weirdest minority when it comes to that, by the way, because I've heard nothing but good things about that. And I'm like, that sucked. I hated that. But anyway, we're talking about What If. I think I'm ready for season 2. I think that they can give a whole lot of things, but I will say this. I tried to, when I watch a series like this, I try to have a standout character. And for me, the standout character in What If ended up being Black Widow. In each episode that Black Widow was in, it brought about something that I felt like really needed to be there. And I think that they did that a lot in What If to kind of help bolster the character of Black Widow, because I'm not saying she was never given her moment to shine in any of the movies. I mean, if it wasn't for her sacrifice in Infinity War, we would not have gotten moments that happened in Endgame. So to see her, and I am going to do a spoiler really quick for What If. When you look at what happened at the end of the final episode of What If, in What If the Watcher broke his oath, that is a really cool moment for the Watcher to say, this particular universe over here lost its widow. You can fill that gap. And to also know that, I was watching it with my wife, and she looked at me and she goes, that means that she can come back in live action. And so that for me was a big deal to hear that. I was like, whoa, I hadn't even thought about that being an option. And now here it is playing in front of us. So
that was my initial takeaway. When I saw that moment, I was like, oh crap. We could see ScarJo come back, baby.
And I think that would be great because I really wanted to see Black Widow in Endgame. And she more. I mean,
yeah. There you go.
It was her sacrifice was in Endgame, not Infinity War.
Middle part.
Yeah, my
Endgame.
bad. Sometimes movies just kind of seem connected. Really, like
that's the beauty of Infinity War and Endgame. They flow with each other beautifully.
They flow better than most sequel type films where there's a part 1 and part 2. I mean, it flowed so well. But all that to say, watching her. I saw see why you were kind of making that. What are you talking about face? But like,
I had to think for a second.
That's on me for getting it kind of mixed up. But anyway, that's for me the big thing there. Caleb, what are your not just your overall thoughts about the Black Widow stuff, but really the whole series? I mean, do you want a season 2? Do you think it can do better, worse? I mean, what do you think?
Well, I am very happy with this finale. It finally delivered what was missing for me. The first 8 episodes, well, really the first 7 is when they felt like they were just their own stories and they were never really going to connect. But really the past 2 made it to where, okay, obviously this is heading toward one situation, one plot point, and that was really great to see. I'm very thrilled with that decision because it made me very happy with the finale. What do you got?
I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
But in the chat, Hillary says she's curious to see how they would reintroduce Black Widow, but mostly Clint's reaction. That makes me wonder, what if at the end of Hawkeye's season finale, is this a one-off or multiple seasons? Have we found that out yet?
I think it's a one-off.
Okay, so let's just say it's a one-off and say we get a post-credit scene and it's Clint meeting Black Widow again. And they're together again, but it's Black Widow from other universe.
Right.
And that's how they drop her back in. That would be something. Yeah. That would split the space-time continuum, like big time.
Well, okay, here's my question that I'm still thinking about too.
Yeah.
When she was thrown back into a different universe, was Steve Rogers Captain America there?
He was.
So is this the same universe then, or is it a different
one? Well,
I don't think did Black Widow die in a previous What If episode? Because if she did, then maybe that's the universe that she was dropped into, and not the universe that we're specifically talking about.
That's a really good question.
Because even Loki's there with the Tesseract, his little staff.
Interesting.
And I know that that's not what he currently has.
I need to go back and rewatch that finale because this is sparking so many.
Because currently after Endgame, Loki is with the TVA. Last we see him.
Right.
He's not because what they're on is they're on that little platform.
They're on the what's it called? The aircraft carrier that flies. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not 100% sure that she was dropped into our Marvel Cinematic Universe that we've come to know.
I don't think that's what she's saying. I'm just saying, and I don't think that's what I'm saying either. I really think what's taking place is, let's just say we can pluck any Black Widow out of any universe and drop her into the MCU timeline that we've known for the last 11 or 12 years, like that is what that's what I'm trying to get at. I think that is now a massive possibility.
Yeah. Well, and even just that idea, maybe the Watcher's watching Black Widow in this universe, and he's like, oh, okay, you need to be brought back here because here's a Black Widow spoiler. For those of you that haven't seen Black Widow, post-credit scene, her sister is being tempted by a villain. Maybe the Watcher's like, your sister's getting into something, and you need to go into this universe to handle that. That would be pretty cool. Just the implications of that being a possibility of Black Widow going to a Black Widow-less universe.
Oh,
pretty
that's
interesting.
Great.
Pretty interesting.
That's Black Widow 2. That's a sequel right there. That's perfect. I would watch. Sign me up for that. I'd watch that in a heartbeat. That's fantastic stuff. Well, I mean, that we spent way more time talking about Black Widow than I really thought we would.
Well, that was my biggest takeaway too. Is when I was watching that, I was like, "Oh crap, what does that mean?" There's some implications behind that.
Was she your standout character like she was for me, or, a totally different ball game for you? Or is there another standout character at all?
My standout character was Captain Carter at the end of it all.
Okay.
I think they want to do more with her.
I think they need to bring back Haley Atwell.
Yeah.
I mean, just put her in live action.
And that stood out to me. I think it's very evident that they want to do more with Captain Carter specifically.
Well, I mean, and I don't know if you did this, but I decided to go ahead and break down what are my favorites, like in order of all 9.
Yeah, I didn't do that, but I'd love to hear yours.
Well, Captain Carter's number 2 on my list, and it stayed there after seeing all 9. It was my most anticipated. People still call me crazy for saying I almost prefer that to Captain America.
Crazy.
But again, I like the implications of it. I like what that could do. And man, I just want to see Peggy Carter kick Tony Stark in the nads. I mean, I just think that would be hilarious. And
yeah,
I mean, she was friends with Howard, but Tony's way different than Howard. I just think that'd be hilarious to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it'd be worth it, honestly. But so, I've got her in my number 2 spot, but number 1, Doctor Strange's episode. What if Doctor Strange lost his heart instead of his hands?
Mm-hmm.
So that's episode 4 is in my number 1 spot. Captain Carter's number 2. The finale is my 3rd one.
I would say for me, it's probably my number 2.
Okay. What do you have that's different than mine, you think?
So far, my number 1 is with you. Strange.
Okay. Strange.
Number 2, the only thing I would say so far compared to yours is I would put the finale there.
Okay. And then after the finale, I wrote down episode 8. What if Ultron won?
That's probably my number 3.
You see, I was just so intrigued by that I was like, that's got to be top 5, know?
Yeah.
And then my number 5 is what if T'Challa became Star-Lord?
Okay. And I think we're on the same page there now, because I would probably put Captain Carter at 4, and then number 5, I would agree with you.
Okay. And then I have Zombies number 6.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I have what if the world lost its mightiest heroes at number 7.
Okay.
Which is the one where Hank Pym decides to go down the rabbit hole. And then what if Killmonger rescued Tony Stark? I have second to last, which, for me, that one actually was the only one I was like, I could take or leave this.
Mm-hmm.
And then last for me is Party Thor. What if Thor were an only child? I still hate that episode.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that one.
And I was talking with my dad. I see my dad every day. I work with my dad.
Mm-hmm.
I see my cousin almost every day, and I work with him too. And we all talk Marvel in between work stuff and when we're not busy. And both of them were like, I really like Party Thor. And I was like, I can't stand it. And my dad said it best, I think, when he said, you either really like some of these or you just don't. Because I mean, he's got very different opinions on other episodes than I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got friends I've talked to, and you and people we've talked to in Discord and on Twitter and everything else, and just hearing the differences in opinions on those is actually a lot of fun. But it's cool to see that you and I are only different in like one or two spots.
Like a couple. Yeah.
I'm curious to see if you're a member of our Discord, and if you're not, you should just drop us. What's your best to worst, if you will, of What If? Because it was a good series. And I think once season 2 comes out, it'll really help, continue to build that. Well, it's kind of strange. We're building a world we already know.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Well, final things that I would say here. Number 1, I think it was beneficial for me to experience viewing an animated Marvel show. And the reason for that is I think it put me in a spot to understand maybe why people that aren't diehard Star Wars fans can't get into Star Wars animation. Like for me, because Marvel's not number 1 for me, it was hard for me to keep up and stay motivated with What If. So it was good for me to be put in that position, because that lets me know moving forward that, hey, maybe people don't connect with just animation as much as people would hope. And I think that's by design. Like, obviously, people know that. That's what it's going to be like. But it was good for me to experience that without it being Star Wars and come to grips with, okay, it's okay for fans to not react to this as much as other things. So I wanted to mention that real quickly.
I think that's a very, very fair way to kind of parallel that, because again, we are a Star Wars podcast at the end of the day. we're going to focus a lot of time on that. So it makes a lot of sense to say, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to say that, because it's not my number one either. You know, Star Wars is. So it makes all the sense in the world when you put it that way.
Yeah. And then the only other final thing that I would say is I think I would have enjoyed it more had it been a binge watch and not a weekly thing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the joy that I get from binge watching things that I've never seen before or watched for the first time is far and away different than going week to week. And, you know, What If kind of didn't hurt me that way. I just feel like I'm with you on that. Like, I totally get that perspective.
All right. Well, there you have it. You got any other final thoughts on What If?
Man, not on What If. No, I think that, you know, it's going to be one of those things that, you know, if it only does 2 seasons, or if they decide to randomly cancel season 2, which I don't see happening. I
just thought of something.
Go ahead. Whatever you have to say is more important than what I have to say.
Sorry, the Gamora thing.
That's season 2, yeah.
Clearly, I think I read something where they weren't able to do the production on that episode to include it in this season. I will say I was distracted with that, because I was able to connect with, I know this character from the previous episode. I know this is getting pulled from that. I was distracted a little bit seeing Tony Stark and Gamora on that location where, Peter Dinklage.
With the star.
Yeah.
Dwarf star.
I was distracted by that a little bit. And
well, I mean, it helped me to know that they had to cut it. But
yeah, that's true.
But I get where you're at.
Yeah, those were just my thoughts. I was distracted there for maybe 5 to 10 seconds, and then I was back into it. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but as you were saying that about season 2, I remembered that was one thing that I did want to mention about this finale.
Well, yeah, and then I'm glad that you did, because it will jump into season 2. I think that'll be one of the first couple episodes, because it didn't get finished for season 1. They're going to want to say what you missed in season 1, whatever. And I don't know. Maybe not. Who knows? But all that to say, if this is one of those shows, I think that when we go back in 5-6 years after it's finished its run of 2, 3, 4 seasons, I'm not seeing anything past 4 seasons personally.
No.
We can only do this for so long. But all that to say, I think it'll be one of those shows we really you remember that? Let's go back and rewatch that, because it plays into Spider-Man 5. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and here we go. I'm connecting this to Star Wars. Star Wars animation opens up possibilities into live action stories. This is what that is at the end of all of this, is what If has done. Yeah. All of these different possibilities of plucking people out of different little multiverse universes, whatever, and putting them all together is now something that, as a Marvel Cinematic viewer, knows, that fits. That makes sense. We've seen this before. And that way, whenever you see it for the first time live action, you're not like, that's just plot line messiness right there. But now that we've been given that expectation in animation form, they'll be able to do that. So I do think What If will impact the franchise of Marvel moving forward in that direction and in that light. And then outside of that, obviously, with more seasons. But that is our final thoughts on Marvel's What If. You let us know what you thought of that animated series overall. We would love to hear your thoughts on that. And that is our Geekverse Reactions episode for this week. And I am so thankful and appreciative for you taking the time to listen to this episode. Admittedly, we did go pretty long there, but that's fine. I mean, we spent some great quality time on each of those topics. I felt the need and the necessity to discuss the finale there of What If in that kind of detail, because I do think, again, there are some implications there that could impact the movie and live action series events going forward. But anyway, thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for the listen wherever you are listening or watching, which if you're watching, you're only exclusively on YouTube. And speaking of YouTube, be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't. Hit the like button, click the share button and share it with a friend. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Do all those good things, and we greatly appreciate it. I have nothing else to say except I'll pass it on to DJ to say his final words and to send us out of here.
I'm still super excited that we hit 100 subscribers. Was it last week?
Yeah.
I don't know if it was during Mando Talk.
It was a week today, because we did it during our Venom Let There Be Carnage spoiler discussion.
which you can still go back and watch or listen to.
Yes,
it'll be there forever until the end of time, or until this all comes to a crashing halt. But yes, you know what? It's not going to. We're not going anywhere, baby. So all that to say, thank you for those of you who are subscribing. We have since last week gained 3 more, so we're at 103. Slowly ticking off the numbers to get to that 200 by Book of Boba Fett.
There you go. There's our updated goal.
We can do it. You can help, and do everything you can to share Geekverse and Mando Talk, especially if you are a variant across different universes. And speaking of different universes, let's go ahead and get out of here. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll see you on Thursday for some more Star Wars stuff. And on top of that, we will see you on Earth 2.